Ray, so as you know, I'm a used car dealer. I sell cars that are $5,000 and under. And here's the big problem that we've been experiencing over the last few weeks. We've been, dead. We've sold some cars, but it's been very, very, very slow. And what you sent me this morning, I want to show to the rest of the folks out here. It seems like a lot of other car dealers are experiencing the exact same thing that I'm experiencing, even in my niche. So if you look down, if you can see my cursor, this
Yes.
pretty steep decline in the last few weeks over this wholesale data.
Yes.
And I feel like this is going to continue because really this wholesale data is going to follow. Usually you see prices drop on the wholesale level and then you see retail values drop. But what you can also see is when retail sales drop for someone like me, well, it's followed by wholesale prices actually dropping because that means a lot of these dealers, just like me, we're pulling back on the cars that we're actually buying right now. So that's going to lead to wholesale prices going down because
Even
I'm
further.
not raising my hand as high at auction right now.
I let me ask you a silly question, and you and I both know it's not silly, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What happens to cars on your lot that don't sell right away? What do you do to encourage people to buy them?
So right now we've even changed what we've done recently, but if it sits for a week, no attention, we drop it $500. If it
Okay.
sits for another 2 weeks after that, no attention, it drops another $500.
So, what you found over the history of doing this is the only way you can relieve yourself of inventory is to continue to drop the price until somebody says, okay, the value of that vehicle now exceeds what Brandon's asking for. Is that correct?
Correct.
And we have seen, according to Black Book data, that the days to turn for used car dealers has gone from 30 to, I think, 38 days,
Yeah.
which means that vehicles are sitting on dealers' lots longer. And the longer a car sits, the only way to move it is to lower the price. And we've also seen or have heard, we haven't seen the statistics yet, but we have heard from many, many sources in on the new car side of things that June has been a really slow month for many, many dealers in many parts of the country, slower than normal. So, what do dealers do, new car dealers do when sales slow down? Same thing you do. They have to lower the price.
What does
So,
that look like from the new car side? Because they're not going out there and they're not lowering MSRPs. And a lot
no.
of these manufacturers, they don't even allow them to lower them to a point where the dealer would actually take that kind of money for it. So what does that look like in new car speak?
Well, in new car speak, what it looks like is between whatever incentives there are from the manufacturer to both the dealer and the customer to move the product, the dealer becomes highly motivated to move the product because the cost of carrying that product is not going down, it's going up. So even though prices are too high, um, as one area vice president for the Penske organization used to say to me, Ray, if the customer hasn't said yes yet, you haven't lowered the price enough yet. So what it indicates to me is at some point, somewhere along the line, the new car dealers are going to blink and have to lower the price because they can't afford to just sit on the inventory.
And I know, so I've been to a new car dealership lately. One of my buddies who actually runs this Nissan dealership, and going through and walking some of his inventory, and almost everyone has like $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 off sticker
Mm-hmm.
in the front. And it's even rare now when we see this data that you'll go to dealerships and see that, but you can find certain dealerships that are already getting basically giving you the first pencil right there on the windshield. And I think that's a good thing you want to look for for actual good dealers to deal with. But it's just interesting to see the dynamic from 12 months ago. You didn't see a lot of that, but now the more dealerships that I'm going to and checking this stuff out, I'm seeing $5,000 off. I'm seeing $8,000 off, and they're advertising it.
How far back do you have to go to when you would go to dealerships, especially Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram dealerships, that on every vehicle they had a $5,000 or $7,500 dealer market adjustment, and they were raising the prices. And I hear that there's still some dealers out there that try that, but they're not the serious dealers. A serious dealer knows in a slowing market, the concept is to not advertise or have an addendum label on the car as somebody's walking by that says there's a $5,000 market adjustment. If you want to sell the car, you have to do what that Nissan dealer's doing. You have to show a $2,500 discount or a $5,000 discount. This is the time that is good for those people that print up the signs, what I call Wozniakis, the mirror hangers, the ones that say was X amount, now $5,000 less. It's a Wozniacki. The printers of those Wozniakis are going to be making a fortune soon, because it just seems the slowdown in sales in June so far, I think, will be significantly more than what dealers had anticipated at the beginning of the month. And we are at, let's face it, it's the 24th of the month. We are at the end of the month. If you haven't made a month yet, you ain't making the month. You're going to try like hell. But if the customers aren't coming in and participating, it's hard, as you know.
Yeah, and I can tell you the people that are selling us our stickers that just say it's like 2500 whatever when we have a $2,500 car.
Yeah,
we're spending more money on stickers because we're changing a lot of these cars from $3,500 and then ripping that 5 off and putting a 0 on it. And we're doing that every 2 weeks now. So what we used to do is wait 2 weeks and then lower the price. But because we've been so slow, I want to find that where the market's going to tell us we can actually sell the car a lot faster than what we have been. So now I've told my office manager, okay, well, let's just wait a week, because it's showing that we're wrong for this market at this point, and I want to find that price really quickly because I don't want to lose $10,000-$20,000 this month.
We are at the point again historically where the values of used cars are dropping week over week at a level that is similar to what we've seen in the past. So the longer a car sits on your lot, it's not going up in value, it's only going down in value. As a matter of fact, when you think about it, from the day you buy it till the day you sell it, the value of that vehicle is only declining because it is a used car. It is a depreciating asset, and they continue to depreciate. So it seems to me it makes more sense to readjust your pricing after a week than to wait 2 weeks. You don't need to wait 14 days and nobody looks at the car for you to go, well, it might be priced too high. You should know that in a week, because if nobody's opening the car to show it to anybody, then it's priced too high. We all know it. When vehicles don't sell, it's because it's still priced too high. We haven't gotten to the point where the customer can easily go, I'll take it.
Yeah. I want to pull up something else that is interesting to me. And I just saw this on this Black Book data that you sent me. Last week's auction conversion rate was 57%.
Yes.
So another thing that happens in a downtrending market when wholesale prices are going down is that we have a lot of no sales, a lot of if bids. And this data is showing only about 50% of the cars that are running through the auction are actually selling, or selling on the block.
Yes.
This is a big problem I have with a lot of the wholesale numbers that I see come through as far as values of actual cars, because these MMRs, like that comes from Manheim, I feel like it's almost useless data in a lot of cases, because when you have conversion rates that are so low, you have a market price on like an F-150 truck and you have 3 of them that go through the lane, all about the same time. One of them brings $20,000 and it gets sold, and the other 2 only run up to 15 grand, and they both no sell. But the MMR is going to show you that the price on that vehicle should be $20,000, when in all actuality, it's probably somewhere around $16,000. And it's, I mean, the price is only what somebody will pay for it.
Yes.
But you can get 2 crazies on one truck, and that's going to jack up the prices. But when you have conversion rates that are this low, it's very difficult to track this data. And I don't envy Black Book, and I don't envy Manheim to actually put this data out when it almost doesn't make sense at this point.
I believe, and you have the chart there in front of you. It wasn't too long ago, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, that the conversion rate at the sales was above 60%, and we're well below 60% again. I mean, how many weeks ago?
It was above 65%.
Okay.
So it's probably 67, 68. But you're going to see that now. This is tax time load up. So you're going to see that during tax time when prices are elevated, that no sales just don't happen.
Yeah, but my guess is that if you look at that more closely, you will see that it's probably closer to the end of March than the beginning of tax time, because when everybody was, and not you, but many dealers were going crazy because of the impending tariffs, that they thought the value of used cars was going to skyrocket, and so they bid them up way too high. And when there's a frenzy of buyers, the conversion rate is higher. So as the conversion rate has consistently gone down over the last several weeks, that would indicate to me that there's a slowdown on behalf of the people out there trying to buy cars, that they are either going not to buy at all, or they are not going to overbid to buy them.
Yeah, look at this. This is interesting right here. So you have, if you can see it, the 2 little humps right here.
Yes.
And I think exactly what you're saying right here is you have our tax time bump is the first one, I think.
Yes.
I think dealers don't prepare. So prices don't go up before tax time gets here. Prices go up at auction right after tax time hits. So this is when tax time hit right here, right at the beginning of end of February, beginning of March. And then I think exactly what you're saying, we had this drop down just a little bit because all that FOMO from tax time went away, but then it was immediately hit with the FOMO from all the tariffs. So that's why you see those two big humps. It's interesting to actually see it on the data, because when you say it out loud, it's obvious, right?
Yes.
And then after that, all the FOMO went away, and now we have this very steep decline. And I think that's going to keep running out probably throughout summer.
Oh, if new car sales are as off in June as what I'm hearing from dealers, you're going to see it continue, because we're as you know, going into the slowest selling time of the year. You've got family vacations coming up, and then you have back to school. And so for the next 60 days between vacations and back to school, buying a car goes away, from most people's minds. Now, maybe it comes back to a degree in September, but I think because there was so much pull ahead, that June, July, and August will be so much slower than what we have historically seen, due to the fact that there was all that pull ahead, and then due to the fact that there's just so much going on at the moment that it's hard to have confidence in saying, I think I'd like to spend a large chunk of money.
Do you feel like sales managers actually know this? I feel like you, who would pay attention to the market when you were actually working in a store, would have seen, okay, we're getting a lot of business now, and it's because these people are doing it for this tariffs, whatever reason you want to say it. Do you feel like these sales managers, these GMs, are paying attention to the market enough? Or are they just like, this is great, everybody's just coming to buy a car, this is fantastic, roll them out? Or they're going to be like, okay, well, we're rolling them out right now, but in 2 months, we're probably going to be extremely slow.
I believe that at least the people that I encountered in my career at a lot of different dealerships, because you have conversations all the time with doing dealer trades. Well, how's business at your store? I believe that the vast majority of people in retail automotive, are always reactive and very rarely proactive. Dealerships have access to an incredible amount of data. But if your dealership hierarchy doesn't pay any attention to that data, or B, doesn't understand what the data is saying to them, then you can't really plan for the future. So you become reactive. The really good, solid dealerships are proactive. They take a look at the data that they have available, and they make intelligent decisions based on that data. There's too many dealers out there that are just reactive and never access the data that they have.
Yeah. And I mean, I would like to say that we're not in that vein, but I am reacting right now to what's going on at my store, and we probably realistically should be buying a bunch of cars because I mean stuff's going down, but maybe if summer's going to be slower. But all I have to say is I can show you how many we've actually bought. So this month we've only sold 31 cars so far this month.
Yes.
And that's very low for us. We want to be somewhere around 60 for the month, and we're not going to get there. And we bought 55. And then last month, she was answering a question for someone else. We actually sold 49 and bought 54. So you can see that the difference in how many we're buying and how many we're selling is a lot closer last month than it was this month. We're still, I mean, there was deals out there this month. So it's hard for me not to go and buy cars that I think are very cheap, even if we have to store them, even if we have to wait for buyers to come in. But I just don't want to get over my skis. That's why we're pulling back right now a little bit.
Do you remember when COVID first hit and, dealers panicked and dealers were selling used car inventory? I mean, and selling it cheap. And most dealers weren't looking to buy inventory, but a lot of smart dealers said, you want to sell it at distressed pricing? We'll buy it. And the reason we'll buy it is we don't foresee the distressing part of this lasting as long as you think it will. And so there were a lot of dealers that bought used cars really cheap during COVID that made an absolute killing when they had the opportunity to retail those cars. And that's hard to time, and it's really scary to have the gumption to be able to do that, because you can get out too far over your skis, especially if you bet wrong. But this is almost one of those times where if the prices keep coming down, it's almost as if, how can you not buy them? Because eventually you will be able to sell them. And because you're buying them so cheap, you'll be able to make back everything you expected to and more, because you were buying them when everybody else was selling them. But it's scary to do.
I want to go back to the beginning of COVID, because I don't think I've ever told you what happened to us during that time. So a month before COVID happened and all the shutdown threats and everything like that, I opened up a second store.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't have that store open for very long, and we found out. Luckily, I own the property, so it was an easy thing to just open it and close it. Well, we moved to the property we are now. We don't own that, but the other property I actually own it. But it was very interesting because we were trying to load up cars. We were selling at that point probably 90 to 100 cars a month. And the lot that I had at that time that I owned, it would only hold 35 cars. So we had two separate storage lots where we were holding 30 cars here, 30 cars there, 45 cars here. and you couldn't walk on my lot. Our employees actually parked at the restaurant that was next door, and we had lots of problems with that restaurant because we were taking up their spaces. But we ended up closing the store that I actually owned the property to because it was much smaller. Maybe 2 months later, and we figured out that this is just not reasonable because we could not get enough inventory to be able to service both locations. And we figured out, okay, well, we'll just move all our team to the one location and sell the other property because it just wasn't going to work out. And I'm glad we did it so quickly, because over the next 2 years, there was no way I would have been able to keep inventory because that was at the time too, where even with all the scare and everything, there's so much money around that the second we would get a car, it'd be gone and we'd sell it.
Well, it's a good thing you had a good relationship with that landlord.
Yeah.
who could let you out of doing this at a moment's notice.
Yeah, I can't imagine some of the businesses that opened like right before it happened. That had to be the worst situation ever in business to deal with.
Well, only because you had to go back a century during the Spanish flu to have any real concept of what a worldwide pandemic would do. None of us lived through that, so that everything that we experienced during the pandemic was new to us. And if somebody had invested millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars into opening a business in January or February of that year, and then in March the whole world shut down, that had to be a scary thing.
Yeah, and just talking about inventory, we've got a question here. Are there more cars at auction than a few years ago? Absolutely, 100% yes. So now there's not more cars than what we experienced back in 2019. I can give you an example of one of the larger auctions that I used to go to. Before COVID hit, that auction was running about 5,400 cars a week.
Wow.
Through this like 16 lane auction, big Manheim auction.
Yeah.
And then when COVID hit, they were lucky to have like 1,200, 1,300 cars. Now they've built back up where we're getting a lot more trade-ins and they're hitting like 3,000 to 3,500, but it's still a far cry from what we had back in 2019. The volume game, while we're getting back to it from a lot of these new car franchise dealers, we're still not close to the game that they used to play. They wanted to run volume. They wanted to get F&I products to all the people that they could. And now they're still able to make more margin on each individual customer. So the volume game doesn't necessarily play as much as it did back then. Hopefully we get back to that, because that would help my business. I would make so much more money if these franchise dealers, these manufacturers get back to volume, because then I'll have so many more trade-ins and used car prices can go down. And that's where I'll thrive. If I can get tons of cars I can sell for $2,000, $2,500, $3,000. That's where I can make my real money, because I can pump out 80, 90, 100 cars a month.
The dilemma is that we know that new car sales are slowing down. We know that pre-owned car sales are slowing down at the moment. So, and we know that even if new car inventory is ticked up a little bit, maybe it's back up to 2.5 million new cars that are available this month. Well, that's still 1 million cars less than what it used to be prior to COVID, where, traditionally there was 3.5 to 4 million new cars available month in and month out, either on the ground or in transit. And that number had, during the pandemic was down to around 900,000. And then it made its way back up just recently, probably 5-6 months ago. We were right around 3 million cars in inventory again. But that number has declined, and now we're down to about 2.5 million. So the amount of cars available for people to purchase are fewer than it had been in the past. And the amount of customers purchasing those vehicles at the moment is even fewer than what would normally be expected, say, in the month of June. So none of this, saying all this, means that none of this bodes well either for new car sales or, I think, used car sales moving forward. I think we're in for a very tough sales cycle for the next 60 to 90 days. That's my prediction.
Do you feel like we'll ever get back to the volume game in the car market?
I think we were headed in that direction. We were absolutely, literally headed in that direction. After the manufacturer said, we will never put ourselves and our dealers in that position again, they were building up inventories almost back to pre-pandemic levels. And I think that would have continued had there not been the threat of tariffs and then the implementation of tariffs. You know, the manufacturers talk out of both sides of their mouth. We learned our lesson. We're never going to do it again. And then they go, well, the more we build and the more we ship to our dealers, the more we make, because that's where they make they don't make their money when the dealer sells the car. They make their money when they build it and they sell it to the dealer. So you just know that as much as the manufacturers would say, we're going to guard our inventory and we're going to keep our levels lower, they don't really mean it. But tariffs changed everything as to how they looked at it, as to how they were going to be able to price it. And so we have seen new car inventory slide backwards. Had there not been a threat of tariffs or an implementation of tariffs, I would not have been surprised that if at some point during the course of this year, new car inventory levels were at 3.2 or 3.5 million again. But because of tariffs, we've gone backwards.
So do you feel like, I don't even know how to phrase this question. So I feel like the threat of tariffs and the stuff that's going to be surrounding tariffs is probably almost behind us at this point, because I think the manufacturers are finding that they're not going to be able to raise prices anyway. Is that accurate? Does that sound accurate to you?
They're using the guise of 2026 model year vehicles to raise prices and say, well, prices always go up one model year to the next. The size and scope of those price increases might be slightly higher than what we would normally have seen, which would indicate that they're going to try and eat as much of the tariffs as they possibly can, because they know that vehicles are priced out of people's price ranges. They're not, they're not that stupid. They know it, and they don't know how to address it. But the other problem is that even though they might know it and they're going to try and mitigate the price increases as much as they can, the fact that there's so much going on in the world at the moment, that the threat of war typically stops people from buying things they don't really need. And most people could look at their car and go, I'll spend a few dollars on maintenance. I'll keep it longer. Most people during unsure economic times keep whatever money they have close to their vest. They keep it to themselves. They're not looking to share it and buy make major purchases. So I think between the tariffs and then what the hell's going on in the Middle East, that's enough to slow things down economically. I think that's a nice way to put it.
Yeah. Don't you feel like we're always just bad news bears all the time? We got to report on what's going on.
It feels as if we're the bad news bears, but we're not the ones coming up with the bad news. Okay. Yeah. We didn't suddenly say to Israel, hey, go attack Iran. Okay, it's, we have no control over some of these things, but all of these things are interconnected as to what happens with local and global economies. They're all tied together. As much as we would like them not to be, the threat of what could go on in the Middle East, the instability in the Middle East, and how it can impact us thousands of miles away, it's a real threat economically, socially. There's just so much going on where I think people are reconsidering spending large sums of money.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to give a shout out real quick. This guy right here, he's actually got a small YouTube channel. He's got a small YouTube channel where he shows his small used car dealer lot, and it's actually very interesting. So,
Yes.
if you like my kind of videos where I show you what I'm buying, what I'm selling, how much I'm doing, he's doing something very similar. And I have watched a lot of his videos. I like to see what other dealers are experiencing across the country, and so. Go check him out. And now I can't figure out how to take him on. There we go. All right.
There you go.
So anyway, Ray, thanks for being here. My wife's behind the scenes. Brandon, who is producer, editor, his name's also Brandon. Behind the scenes, we thank all you guys for watching this video. Like, subscribe, comment, do all the things. Ray, thank you for being here, buddy.
Thank you. I really enjoy the half hour we spend together on Tuesdays. It's a lot of fun.
I'll see you next week.
Yep, you got it.